Hello and welcome to your weekly roundup of all the latest news and ramble about the world of electric cars from the team at electrifying.com. Today we are talking the Geneva Motor Show, the all-new, all-electric, very exciting Renault 5. And we have some sad news about how the mighty Leaf has finally fallen. Tom is particularly heartbroken about this. Plus, of course, we'll be answering your car buying even conundrums and delving into the weekly postbag. Welcome to the Kilowatt Half Hour. I'm Ginny.
And I'm Tom. Just the two of us, Ginny. Just the
Just
two of us.
one of those. The others are all off doing more exciting things. So it's been left to us to man the podcast this week. And I think we should kick off with the sad news that we actually broke along with the Sunderland Echo, that the Leaf, the Nissan Leaf, which has been built, of course, for many years at Nissan's plant in Sunderland, is going out of production for a while. And you're particularly heartbroken about that, aren't you?
I am, yeah. Well, I've had Leafs for 11 years, and the current one we've had for 8 years. So it feels like a part of the family's finally shuffled off the production line. And they've made 270,000 of them up in Sunderland.
Isn't it?
And it was a big revolutionary car, but it's kind of been left to wither a bit, hasn't it? It's I mean, if you look at the middle of a Leaf, the doors are the same as that car which was launched in 2011, and we complain about electric cars being 2 years old, feeling out of date. So I can see why it's happened.
It's not even the doors. I mean, I had a little chat with another good friend of ours who will be very sad and is very sad by this news, Andy Palmer, who was the chief operating officer at Nissan and really pushed through the Leaf getting into production. He's often referred to in the media as the godfather of electric cars, which, if you know Andy, is quite funny because he's the least kind of mafioso-like godfather figure you could imagine. But he was indeed, he was so, intrinsic in getting that car made. And his point was it's a very old platform as well. There's stuff that goes under the cars. It's 13 years now. You'd think 7 years really for the life of a platform, maybe a bit longer. So it's quite sad, but I think we've got to celebrate the Leaf because we were looking at some figures last night when we were tapping at the story, weren't we? And we figured out that actually, it's a couple of billion tons of CO2 have not been put into the atmosphere because of the Nissan Leaf. So it's a bit of an electric superhero. It's a bit more Clark Kent rather than, Superman's Tesla. But it's got so many people into electric for the first time. And it will be back, won't it, in 2026?
Yeah, 2026 is a new car, and Sunderland, the big factory, is having a £3 billion refit to have three cars. So there'll be the Leaf, and then there'll be a replacement for the Qashqai and the Duke. So it's not all bad news. It'd just have been nice if they had a new Leaf ready for when the old one was ready to be killed off, I suppose. And that should have been maybe 2 years ago.
And I wonder why. I don't really understand. It's very unusual for a car to go out of production mid-range like this and have a gap but then come back, isn't it? So I
Yeah.
don't quite understand why, as you say, there wasn't one ready, unless it is to do with factory. The factory needs this upgrade. I've no idea, but it is a shame. And yeah, I'm sure you've been, going out and giving your own Leaf a little hug.
Yes, I haven't told it yet. Yeah.
Oh, it'd be interesting though to try and, I'm sure the Leaf was for so many of us was the first electric car that we drove. I think for me it was the first. The second was the Kia Soul, actually, when that first went electric. So I'd love to hear in the comments this week, and please, if you want to, you can comment. If you're listening on YouTube and watching on YouTube, you can comment on YouTube. If you're listening on one of your podcast platforms, then you can drop us an email, info@electrifying.com. But we would love to know, was the Leaf your first electric car or your first experience of an electric car? Let's share some happy stories about the Leaf. And we actually have a lovely video, don't we? We have a video called Leaf Street, which you should check
which is
out
my
on our
street.
YouTube channel that Nicola did. And this is a video we actually made with Nissan, but it was a genuine story of how, Tom, you just introduced the Nissan Leaf to your street, and literally you are a village full of Leaf drivers now, aren't you?
Yeah, so I got the car, and people would ask you about it and say, "Oh, it's one of those electric cars. How does that work?" And you go, "Well, it works like this, and it costs very little to run." And we use it for this, and they'd go, well, maybe it would work for me. And they'd have a look around your car, and then one would buy one, and then the next person would say, come along to that person and say, oh, how does it work for you? And you'd end up selling loads of electric cars. And in those days, it was really only a Leaf. I mean, now the word has spread throughout our village, and my next door neighbour has 2 electric cars. So just purely because they've gone, oh, that works, and they've had one, then they've had another, and it happens. I don't know if it happens everywhere else too, but yeah, in my village, there are lots of electric cars now.
So much so, we did make a video entitled Leaf Street. And in fact, and that's another thing we'd love to hear about. Do let us know if you've actually, are you spreading the word about electric cars on your street, in your neighbourhood? Have you ended up with your neighbours getting the same electric cars as you, or getting into electric because you've perhaps given them the confidence? Yeah, let us know about that too. That would be an interesting one to find out. So it's been a busy week. You went to Geneva, which
Yeah.
from what you say is not the Geneva Motor Show we all remember it to be.
No, well, I went in there slightly sort of skeptical because the show's come back after they cancelled it during COVID with 2 days' notice, and that
Mm-hmm.
upset everybody, all the exhibitors there. And I think car makers were starting to pull away from motor shows, thinking they were an outdated concept. Um, and it's the first time it's come back, and it's obviously been a little bit of a struggle for the organisers because normally you have all these halls which are packed to the rafters with all the exotic car manufacturers, all the normal ones, and then there's other halls full of car washes and socket sets and things. And this year we walked in, there's one hall, and
Yeah. It
I
wasn't even
thought,
a
oh, there's
full
another.
hall, was it? It wasn't even a
No,
full hall
no,
because there used to be an upstairs to the main hall, and that wasn't there. It was just the like half a
yeah.
hall, really.
Well, there was the one hall where there were things like coffee shops, and there's the middle of it normally where you'd find like a Aston Martin or something. There was an ambulance conversion company, and the sort of universities doing a solar car or something, and that's a bit like, oh, you're just filling space here. Upstairs was there, but it was classic cars, so it was just they'd
Um,
emptied out a museum. Now, I did think, well, this is no good to me because I'm not going to get a story looking at a Bugatti Royale or a Talbot Matra Rancho, but I think if you're actually a member of the public, that might have some value. So as it
yeah,
was, I
maybe.
had a look around, did all the press conferences, chatted to a few people, and then, unlike normally where you run out of time, I was like, oh, well, actually, I'll go up and have a look at the old cars. And I came away thinking it was slightly better than I thought it would be. It was a shadow of its
Okay.
former self, but it still had something to offer, I think. Whether it will be back next year, I don't know.
Who knows? Who knows? But the big star of that show, and actually the car that I can finally talk about because I've been away twice to see it, is the Renault 5 E-Tech. The icon
Yeah.
is back.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
Renault had taken off taken over half the entire
yeah,
hall with the Renault 5. There was lots of space filling, but yeah, it's a nice car, isn't it? It really
it,
does look like a concept car. It's amazing that
honestly,
they've managed to get it to translate onto a production.
yeah. I mean, I saw this about 3 weeks ago for the first time, and I was very fortunate that Renault invited us into that design studios in Paris to have a look at it and to meet the design team and to chat to the designers and also to chat to the clay modelers. And it was just the most mind blowing experience for me because that's the side of the car industry that I really love. I've always been really interested in the whole the design process, and just to chat to them about what happened with this car was really fascinating. So we have a video, of course, over at electrifying.com. We got a full review. But it was such an interesting story, this, because Luca De Meo came in as like the new boss of Renault. And what happens is you have these sort of meetings, like, every sort of quarter or something with the big boss, and the design team will get all the cars that they have these design reviews, and they'll get the cars they're working on and any ideas, and he'll sort of have a look and yes and no, and I like that, and not so much that one. And it was a really last minute decision to put this mock up, which is what they called it. They said it was a design mock up of an idea that they'd worked on a while ago of what the Renault 5 could look like if it came back. And it was just sort of languishing in a corner of the design studio. And somebody at the last minute just said, "Oh, come on, let's just put this in. Let's just include it." And that was the one car that he really latched onto and really got him excited. And he said, go away and make it. So we've got imagery and access to that mock-up, and that's in the video as well if you want to see that. And it was very interesting seeing the design mock-up. He then gave them 6 months only to work on the concept car, which they did. And that is quick going in automotive terms. And then they brought that concept car out, and actually seeing that process of that car, then the concept car, then the production car, which they did 3 years later, seeing the three together, as you just said, Tom, it really does look pretty close to that concept car and pretty close to that initial design mock-up, which is really unusual. I'm sure you agree that there are so many times that I've loved a concept and gone to see the production car, and you're a bit like, oh, okay, it's not quite the same. And I think what Renault has done with this is incredibly clever. And not just in terms of how it looks, but some of the stuff on this car is super smart. The fact that you're going to get vehicle to load, which allows you, of course, to use your car, to charge things, which sounds like a gimmick, but is actually really useful. You can charge your e-bike or a vacuum if you want to get, when you're cleaning your car out. When we had power cuts here, famously made my son go and sit into a car that had vehicle to load and do his homework in the car when his laptop died. So it's that, but also vehicle to grid, which is where we're going in the future, isn't it, Tom, with using our cars to help balance the grid, to help use it as battery storage, to be able to, draw energy from the grid at off-peak, feed it back either into a battery that you can use yourself for your home energy, or even into the grid at higher times and make money from it. So there's some really clever technology on that. I could talk about. Sorry, go on. You've seen it as well now. I know you loved it as much as.
I think what amazed me really were the details on it, and you can imagine that the designers would have to have fought to get those details in because they all cost money. So, like the rear lights, which hark back to the turbos and still do something aerodynamic now. That big 5 on the bonnet, which shows you how full the battery is. The big wheels, so 18-inch wheels are standard. Yeah, those sorts of things. Oh, and the interior, of course. That dashboard, which looks like the classic one. Those sorts of things I was really impressed with, that they've just managed to have gotten through to the production car on something which is going to be reasonably cheap, isn't it? 25 grand, you reckon? So it's
25 grand. I am reasonably informed. They've not confirmed pricing yet, but I am reasonably informed that it will be 25,000, and we're not taking the entry level spec in the UK. So we'll be getting the mid-range. That will be for a good, well-spec car. And all of those nice things like the vehicle to load, vehicle to grid are standard across the range. That battery monitor, I think, is one of the best pieces of design I have seen in years and years and years. And it shows that functional design, something that's practical can still look great. So if you haven't seen it, do head over and have a look at the video and the pictures on the site. And Manos hopefully will drop some images in here. But it's sort of reminiscent of the old grille that was on the front of the Renault 5, but it's reinterpreted. So it is an illuminated panel. It's a 5 that is sort of lights up in long sort of grille sections, and the light goes out as you lose battery. So you're able to just take a glance and look at it, and you think if you've got one panel lit, you've got 20% of your battery left. It's just really clever little things like that. I think it's the first time we've seen that on a car. And then if you
I
start
think
to delve, go on, sorry.
the only tiny thing that I was disappointed with, and it was something that I think will affect it in the showroom, is that the interior is amazing, that the seats look great quality, but the door panels on the inside I thought were a bit disappointing. Like they'd run out of money, or they'd forgotten that they had to
Yeah,
do those as well. So, like on the new Mini, you've got fabric on there and it all kind of
yeah,
fits in. It's like the door panels have been designed by somebody else, and the slightly
yeah. I
cheap,
mean,
scratchy plastic.
but it wouldn't. They would have had to cut some costs somewhere, because
Mm,
goodness me, they have spent on that car. They
mm,
really have.
mm,
And I do, like you
mm,
say, it's got those 18-inch wheels, and I love the confidence that they just say you're only getting 18 inches because that's what we think they look best in that. There are no other options.
mm.
But also, I
Crazy.
guess, it's. Did you have a poke around for some of the Easter eggs? Because there's loads of little Easter eggs in it that you can find. So in the rear pocket on the back of the driver and the passenger seat, where you can shove your books or whatever, or your snacks. If you go
Mm,
inside, there's a little label that you have to look in, and you have to pull it up, and it's just got a series of Renault 5s over the eras, just on it. Really lovely touches. I mean, that car
Nice.
has gone down incredibly well on our social channels, hasn't it, this week as well?
Yeah,
So
yeah. I think everybody else loves it as much as we do.
I know, and it is nice, genuinely nice to feel excited about a car that is relatively inexpensive. You know, it's not; it's a very expensive. It's a £25,000 new car, but I think in a world where so often the cars that you get excited about are the, you know, perhaps the more
Mhm.
luxury ones, the more premium ones. It just feels like you're getting a lot for your money with this, which is really nice, I think, to see in an electric car.
Yeah. Can I tell you about another cheap or cheaper electric car that I saw there that impressed
I
me
would
more than
love,
I thought it would?
I would love to
Um,
hear about it.
it's a car called the Silence S04. Now, Silence have made electric scooters for a while, and some of them have been
Mhm.
badged as Seats.
Yeah.
And they've made a little car, and it's been brought to the UK.
Wow.
You can now buy one here, and I think it's going to be about 16,000 pounds. And it's kind of, I suppose it's like a posher Ami, if you like. So I don't think it looks as funky as the Ami, but it's narrower than an Ami, amazingly, and
Yeah.
shorter. And you sit, one seat's further back than the other, a bit like kind of two-thirds of a McLaren F1, I suppose, to give you extra elbow room. It does 93 miles on a charge, and it will do 50 miles an hour, which I think is the main problem with an Ami, is that you only get 40 something miles and you can only do 28 miles an hour. So
It's
this is
not
kind
fast
of
enough.
more usable.
Yeah.
Um, but the really clever thing is it has two battery packs, which look like kind of big electric motors or big metal boxes, like a cool box, I suppose. And
Yeah.
they're on wheels, and the wheels, you can take them out of the car and you can use them as a battery pack at home. So if you've got a power cut, you can use it there. But you can also bring them indoors to charge should you want to. But the
Oh.
really clever bit is that you can swap them. So in Spain, because the car's made in Spain, designed in Spain, they have 100 swap stations, and they're going to have 200 by the end of this year. And they do 5,000 battery swaps a month because they're the same ones that are used on their scooters. And it takes 30 seconds to change the battery. So, you could do both in less than a minute, and then you get another 90 miles. And you buy the car, lease the battery. And it just seems so sensible and clever. I mean, some of these cars, people look at it and laugh and say it looks like a mobility scooter or something.
Mm.
But I just thought, do you know, that could work really well if you lived in an apartment block or something. How do I charge my electric car? You don't bother. You take the battery in at night and charge it and put it back in
Yeah.
again in the morning. And it was really
If
easy
you're,
to do.
it's a smart idea if you're in the centre of town, but I think it hinges, doesn't it, on having those battery swap stations as
Yeah.
always. However, if it's split as you say, and that makes them, I don't know how heavy they are. You also
Mhm.
then have an option of bringing your battery inside, charging it up in your third floor flat
Mhm.
on a three, don't you?
Yeah,
Presumably.
exactly. And
Yeah.
if there's a power cut, then you can use it for that. And you can charge it overnight on the cheap rate and everything else. Yeah, it just seemed very clever. And I know having rechargeable batteries that you can swap over is in China and in India is now the big new thing. So outside sort of convenience stores, you have these banks a bit like
Mhm.
those kind of Amazon locker things, and you just plug them in. You just go, "No, no, put another one in."
Yeah. I just kind of think we're so crap at stuff like that in this country, aren't we, and in Europe? You know, like I just
Yeah.
look at the Zoe and the confusion and how everybody got very and didn't like the fact that they didn't own it all. I think we have a
Mm.
different attitude to owning things here. And I just don't I just can never imagine, like I just think, well, it'd be really handy for where I live. Can't imagine that kind of place ever popping up in my town centre. Maybe
No,
I'd
well, I
do
think
it,
there'd be in fuel stations, wouldn't they, or your local convenience store? I don't know. Maybe they've just got one that does three in your local convenience store. Fuel stations have 10
yeah.
or something. I don't know.
I think
They
it's a
got it to
brilliant
work in
idea,
Spain.
but
Mm.
they'd have to. I think like getting a deal with someone like a Tesco, where
Mm.
or an Aldi, where all you in those places where there's normally one on the edge of most towns, and they've got space. If you knew that, that's how I think that will work. Is if you
Mm.
can, it's somewhere that's really easy for you to go to. You're probably going to pop there anyway. So I think it's
Yeah.
all about how they roll it out. But we're going to drive that car, aren't we? We're going to go and have a look at it and put a video
Yeah.
up
We're going
here
to
on
go
YouTube. Yeah.
have a poke around it. Yeah. It'd be great. Um, at the other end of the scale in Geneva was perhaps the silliest car I've ever seen. And it's another car we're going to drive soon, isn't it?
It
It's
did,
just the sort
yeah.
of thing that the figures that they were coming out in this press conference. I'm like, this car is science fiction. It's something that's been dreamed up by an 8-year-old boy. It was unbelievable. So it's the Wang U8.
It's massive.
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, it looks a bit like a slightly bloated Land Rover Defender, the latest Land Rover Defender, not the classic one,
Yeah,
with some crazy like styling things on it, big lights on the front and a huge silly grille. But it has 1100 horsepower.
I
So,
know. I know, it's
I mean,
insane.
it's like 11 times what my Leaf has.
It's not only that, it does tank turns,
Yeah,
and
so
it can float for 30 minutes on water in the event of a flood
yeah, or an emergency,
or
they
a
say.
river
So
or an emergency.
if you see somebody who needs rescuing, you can use it as an amphibious car, and it will float for 30 minutes. But they don't recommend it. I mean, I've seen a video of it. It's nuts. But yeah, it's got 4 motors, so 1 motor in each wheel. So you
Mhm.
can turn them in different directions. So a bit like a tank, or you see those little diggers where you do one way and one the other, and it just does that. I mean, what that does to your wheel bearings and your tires, I don't know. You don't want to do it on a slippery surface, but yeah, then you can do that. Then you can do 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. Um,
It's insane.
I, it's insane. Um,
Yeah.
I think the problem they'll have, they're gauging reaction again to it coming to the UK. The problem they have is it weighs 3.4 tons before anybody gets in it. So
Yeah.
if I got in it, I'd have to have a special license to drive, like a HGV license, because it would be too heavy.
Not gonna work then, is it?
No.
Yeah. That surely they must have exemptions for that though, because they are seriously
Oh,
thinking
who
about it
knows?
bringing it to the UK. So
Yeah.
there'll be ways around that. But that is another car that I would say it's going to come to the UK because we've been invited to go and have a look at it. So
Mm.
we're going to have a good look around it. We're going to be able to. I can't figure out whether we're actually going to have a passenger drive of it or actually drive it, but that's all coming in a few weeks. So if you aren't already, do subscribe to the YouTube channel because we've got some really interesting stuff coming over the next few months, haven't we, in terms of videos and what we've got access to. Some really fun stuff coming.
Yeah.
I am conscious that this podcast is called the Kilowatt Half Hour. We're now at 20 odd minutes, I think, maybe. So shall I find our let me just see if I can find up all some of our car buying conundrums and some
Hmm.
of the questions that we've had sent to us over the past week. Should we kick off with car buying question? You are
Yeah.
our
Why not?
market guru. You're the market guru. You've got any questions on what electric car you should buy, whether that's new or whether you're in the market for something secondhand. Tom is officially, we've renamed him, he is our car buying guru and he would be more than happy to answer them. So we've got a question that came in, but it's anonymous. So I don't know who sent this in. Um, I don't know why we don't have a name, but we don't have a name. So our mystery shopper has got to the point in life where they need to put some money away for the future. Yeah, I think I'm also at that point. Did I write this? God, maybe I wrote it. So the next EV I buy needs to be bulletproof. It's got to last me for a maximum of 8 years, maybe 10. Be reliable, minimal degradation of the battery. Currently have a Megane E-Tech. Like the look of the Renault Scenic E-Tech, concerned a bit about the reliability of Renaults. Don't think necessarily
Hmm.
that's perhaps something now with these new cars you need to be worried about. Was looking at the Volvo EX30, looked at a Smart X1, but the stupid Fox on the infotainment system would irritate me. And yes, it irritates me too, mystery shopper. Any other suggestions? The only must-have's got to be no more than £45,000. Needs 22 kilowatt AC charging, as I can't charge at home, so the 22 comes in very handy. Thank you in advance for your help. I'm now hooked on the Kilowatt Half Hour. Thank you so much, mystery shopper. Right, go on. What do you reckon?
Well, I think that the point there that's slightly oiked me is the 22 kilowatt part, because there aren't that many cars that have that, certainly as standard or even available. The one that springs to mind is a Nissan Ariya, because that had 22 kilowatt, and I'd used it all the time when we had an Ariya, and I
It
think that would
does.
be a nice car, and it should be reliable. If that's not such a big problem, then I would say Hyundai Ioniq 5, Kia EV6, or an e-Niro if he wants to go a bit cheaper. I mean, that's long warranties, lots of
I
tech.
just feel like those are looking a bit
Mm.
dated now. And when you
Ioniq
think,
5 doesn't, does it? Do you think?
I
Nero
mean,
does, but
I don't love the Ioniq 5 personally. I like it. I
mm,
think it's a very good car. It's a bit too much going on with that car for me. I would actually be looking at the Volvo EX30. I
mm,
mean, Volvos, the question is, I understand Volvos last a long time, do they? Well, they do last a long time typically. I really like that car. I think perhaps wait 6 months or so before you buy one, because I think there are a few glitches with the software on some of these early cars. So I think you're probably best to just give that a bit of time to bed in, would be our thoughts on that. The other one that I think is really interesting that might, and I mean, and again, I don't know how big you need this car to be, but if you're not looking to buy immediately, I've been in a Kia EV9 at the moment, and you've driven that as well,
mm,
and I think that is a fantastic car. I'll tell you what, actually, the efficiency on it. Do you remember Nicola did that range test in the
mm,
Arctic, and it
mm,
came out really well? I've been using it, and I'm getting really close to the claim range, and it's pretty cold and miserable at the moment. I think it's a cracking car for so many reasons. However, it is not within your budget, but there is a baby version of that coming out soon. So there's a first look video that we did of that on the Kia EV3. Now that we are going to be seeing the production version of that this year, and it will be going on sale in the UK in the not too distant future. Although I'm not sure if that's going to have 22 kilowatt charging. Do you know what? We'll do a bit more
mm,
research into this one for you, and we'll come up with some more options. In fact, also let us know in the comments below what you would advise for mystery shopper. So up to £45,000, got to have 22 kilowatt charging, needs to be, something that's going to last, stand the test of time. Okay, send us your
mm.
suggestions. Should we do some postbag?
Yeah,
Um,
there's another deal. Can I do one of my
okay.
deals? Which,
Oh
well,
yeah,
one of
go
them's
on, your deal.
actually gone, but
Oh,
it's come from a guy called Robert Smith, presumably not the one who was it the Cure
oh,
frontman Robert
I was
Smith?
going to do this. I was going to, yeah, on the subject of amazing deals. Go on, yeah, Robert Smith.
Yeah. So you recommended looking for a deal on a Honda ENY1 because there seemed to be
Yeah.
some crazy stuff about. And this guy came in. I saw it in the post bag, and I thought this cannot be true because it just sounds silly. And it was at Arnold Clark, which is a massive dealer group up in Scotland, and they've obviously had a batch of these Hondas in,
Mm-hmm.
and it's £249 deposit, and then £249 per month. Now, this is a £48,000 car. And I'm like, that can't be right. So I checked it out and it was there. It was on their website as that deal. I checked this morning, sold out, unsurprisingly,
It's
because it's the
gone.
sort of deal you should have got. But I had a look around again, and there's another dealer group, Marshalls, who were offering them with the total deposit contribution was 13,000 and something quid. I mean, 13
Wow,
grand discount off a car.
that's
I mean, I don't know
insane.
what's going on at Honda, but that's got to be a deal, isn't it?
There's something going on with all the car makers called the ZEV mandate, and that means that
Mm,
22% of the cars they sell this year have to be electric. Some are having to work harder at that than others. And as we keep saying, the later you get into the year, I think there's going to be some really interesting deals. Just going to say hello to Nicole. That's all I've got, Nicole, which I presume is a surname, who said, I work for Arnold Clark and currently Honda are doing a deal on the ENY1. That very deal. It's gone now.
mm,
But Nicole, if you have another deal that you think we should be talking about, then do let us know. So yeah, I think we'll open that up. If there's any great deals that you come across that you want to share with the electrifying audience, again, send us an email, info@electrifying.com, or you can drop us a note in the comments below. Um, there's some funny things in Tom. Do we talk about the Cupra Born, the new range topping version of that was getting you excited last week? Rob
yeah, and
Smith, go on. Sorry, go on.
actually, they've talking of deals, they've just lopped a couple of grand off the entry level Born as
Oh,
well.
they have. They have.
But no,
Rob
there
Smith
was a
has
good joke.
Yeah, Rob Smith has got a joke. I mean, honestly, it's we might need to steal this one for you for one of our headlines at some point. The top range Cupra Born should be called the Born Supremacy. I do quite like that. And again, people just agreeing that the Born does look so much better than the ID.3. Adam, yes, we agree with you absolutely on that one. And I think on the subject of keeping cars clean, okay, looking at me again. Michael Fields, I agree entirely with Tom and Mike. Wash and polish a car to get to know it properly. Okay. I
Yeah.
don't share that enthusiasm for it with you. I really don't.
You
Jonathan
might
Taylor,
like
I'm
it.
with. No, I wouldn't like it. I
You could
really
try it.
wouldn't.
Just
No,
allot yourself
no.
an hour, get a bucket full of warm water and a sponge and go out and just clean a car.
I mean, I have clean cars, but I just don't enjoy doing it. Jonathan Taylor, I'm with Tom on his car cleaning enjoyment. My friend used to run a Mini Cooper 3-door, and with no interest herself in cleaning it, it would frequently turn up at her house looking dirty. The paint quality on the Mini was delightful. The dirt and grime just washed away easily. It was a delight to wash. What a lovely friend you are, Jonathan Taylor. If only you were one of my neighbours. And Blobstrom, great name. Great half-hour, guys. Why, thank you. Can I say I like to see cars with a bit of road grime? Yes. It shows where the dirt hotspots are. Ginny, what are you filming with today? Oh, the camera. I know. I was in a dark room. I'm so sorry. I wasn't using a 20-year-old Nokia camera. I was actually using a MacBook Pro, but the room was quite dark as this one is. So it's blame it on the MacBook. It is 4 years old, but even so, no excuse. Right then. So
I think that's
I think
kind of the
we've
end of the bottom of the post bag, isn't it?
we've reached the bottom of the post bag. We've crashed the kilowatt half hour once again. We're almost there. What are you going to be up to next week, Tom? Anything exciting?
No, I think I'm going to be driving a desk next week. I think it's going to be quite quiet.
Driving the desk. Okay. I don't know what I'm going to be doing next week. I think actually I'm going to be sort of driving a desk for quite a lot of the time last week. I have been around everywhere. Been off to look at a new Audi this week. That was quite fun. And next week, yes. Oh no, you're not. Oh, no, it's the week after you're going to be looking at that crazy car, isn't it? The Huang Yang. Huang Yang.
Yang Wang.
Yang Wang. But there is oh God, okay, that one. We'll call it the U8 instead. So that is the kilowatt half hour. As always, thank you for listening. Please do, if you're listening to this on your usual podcast platforms, please do like us and leave a comment because it does help with sharing the podcast. And if you aren't already subscribed to the YouTube channel, then please make sure you do that as well because that also helps us get the word out and we like to get more subscribers. Thank you for listening. Have a fantastic week, everybody, and we'll be back next week.
Bye.